Hi everyone, I'm Heather from Grounded Approach, and today I want to talk about die-off. And I have a new whiteboard, so if you love my whiteboard, hopefully it's going to help keep my brain on track. If you like my whiteboard, give me a like and a comment and subscribe because I'm pretty stoked about it. So the reason I do these videos is I'm a GAPS practitioner and a nutritionist, and a lot of this is stuff that I'm always saying to clients, and I just kind of find having a video library of a lot of these topics will help my clients and people who aren't my clients kind of wrap their head around GAPS if you're a visual person or you really need someone to talk to, because the book can be quite intense. It's a huge learning curve, so it's just another way to break down some of these concepts and hopefully to help you really grasp what's going on when you want to do the GAPS diet. So yeah, today I'm talking about die-off and what is die-off, and I'm going to try to keep it pretty simple. Basically, die-off is another word for detox symptoms. So if you can remember that, then that's going to be great. Our gut is our whole digestive tract. It's populated with bacteria and yeast, funguses, parasites, all these different things going on. And yeah, it's like a whole community. And if you live on a processed diet and you've had antibiotics and everything, your gut microbiome, all those bacteria and little guys going on, might be very adapted to sugary, carbohydrate, processed foods. That was me. And so that's what they're going to be eating. That's what they're going to be craving. And oftentimes people in this case have an overgrowth of pathogenic bacteria and pathogenic organisms that aren't necessarily beneficial to your body. Now they are supporting your body because in a lot of ways they're doing, they're processing things that we shouldn't be eating or shouldn't be in contact with, so they can be helpful. But generally we want to fix this. We want our gut to be populated with the beneficial bacteria, the guys that help us create hormones and neurotransmitters and create vitamins and digest our food and protect our gut lining. That's what we want. We want those good bacteria. So when you dive into a gut healing diet, a big part of that is changing your microbiome. You stop feeding them those foods that are feeding the bad bacteria, like those carbs and processed foods, and you switch into more veggies, meat stock, fermented foods, and these are going to be feeding the good guys in your gut. So that's what we're doing. Now, it's important to know that those bad guys, often Clostridia or Candida, they are exhaling really toxic gases, like alcohol, okay? So that's why often you get symptoms similar to alcoholics. You can feel crazy, or your kids can have a lot more tantrums or act out and all these things. There's all these toxins going on. And a lot of those toxins that you might not even know are going on in your gut are gonna be the reason that you have health symptoms to begin with. So let's say you're doing GAPS because you want to get rid of your asthma and your skin issues, whatever. Those may be coming from that bacteria that's exhaling those toxins and those toxic gases. That is your body's coping mechanism of getting rid of it. So you have a lot of these bad bacteria, you're eating pizza and carbs and whatever. Not that necessarily carbs are bad, but you're eating all these processed foods. Now those bad bacteria, they're getting fueled and they're exhaling toxic gases and they're growing in number. So what does your body do with all these toxins that's going on in there? They have to get rid of them. And so some of the common ways are skin issues, your skin's detoxing, so that can be eczema, psoriasis, acne even, asthma, that's your lungs detoxing, digestive issues, Crohn's colitis, that's your bowels detoxing. So a lot of these health issues that we have are coming from that gut bacteria, and it's just your body's way of coping and getting those toxins out. So when we start moving into a GAPS diet and we're healing the gut bacteria, we're starting to introduce the good bacteria, and they kill off some of that bad bacteria. So yay, that's super good. We're killing off the bad bacteria and we're welcoming in the good ones. But when you do that, all those bad bacteria that have gases or they're hanging onto metals or parasites or whatever, they start dumping, or as they're dying, they're releasing even more of those toxic gases. So when you get on GAPS and you're doing all the right things, sometimes you feel even worse. And that is die-off, okay? It's similar to a detox. It's your body's way of getting rid of stuff that is dying off. Now they're introducing those probiotic foods. The good bacteria is going and killing that bad bacteria, and those bad bacteria are releasing the chemicals, and your body feels like crap. So I think that's really, really important to understand because I've heard a lot of people say, oh, I tried GAPS and my symptoms got worse and I felt worse. That is to be expected. If you are going on to GAPS, you should expect at least a week of feeling worse, okay? Because those symptoms that you're having all the time, they just got way worse because now that your body's having to detox twice, 3 times the amount every single day. So when you start that diet, some of those common die-off symptoms, skin, like I mentioned, mental health, your anxiety and depression could get way worse temporarily, any regressions in health, fatigue, pain, brain fog, bad breath, these are all very common die-off symptoms. So if you go on GAPS and you are like, oh man, I feel terrible, I have insomnia, I can't sleep, I'm exhausted, my body hurts, it's not working. It might be, okay? So don't throw in the towel and quit yet because that actually might be your body getting rid of all those toxins. And it's trying to get rid of them through every avenue, through your skin, through your bowels, through your lungs, through your mouth, through your sweat, through your lymph. And so we feel like crap. So that is die-off. It is the detoxification of basically those bad organisms in your gut and the toxins that are associated with them. So how do we manage that? The first way to manage that, and this is outlined in the book, is very slowly introducing them. So if you're introducing sauerkraut or whey or something like that, I highly recommend starting with 1 drop. Sometimes that's too much. So start with a drop, do that for 3 days, notice how you feel. If your die-off is so bad and you feel horrendous, you can scale it back. Work your way up. Some people need to do a drop in like a ton of water and take a sip, and that's the dose that they need to start off with. So slow introduction is key. And so we're slowly introducing the dose of whatever food we eat, and we're also paying attention to very slowly increase new foods. So maybe start with your sauerkraut juice and just have a drop, increase that, and then 2 weeks later, try a drop of beet Voss or kombucha or something like that. So you're introducing the dose slowly and you're introducing new food slowly. Those are very, very key because what you'll see happen is maybe you start feeling good and then you introduce yogurt, for example, and all of a sudden all your die-off symptoms come back and you feel way worse. That actually is a good sign. That is your body going, great, we're getting rid of even more. We're introducing more powerful, different strains, different species that are gonna attack different pathogens, and we're really cleaning things up. So that is to be expected. That's a good thing. That means you're on the right track, even though it can be really, really painful. So that slow introduction, slowly increasing the doses, having realistic expectations. You're not gonna feel amazing the first day. You're probably gonna feel fatigued. A lot of people throw up. A lot of people feel like they have the flu. That is super normal. And one more way to manage is detox practices. So GAPS is not just a diet, it's a protocol, and one of those pillars is your detox practices. So all those bacteria that are trying to get out of your body, we really need to open up the avenues for them to get out. So one is making sure you're having bowel movements every day. We don't want all these toxins just sitting in your bowel and recirculating. If you can have a bowel movement every day, that is great. And if you really can't, you can do like a water enema if you really need to get those bowels moving. Detox baths are awesome. So you're gonna get in a bath with hot water and either do like half a cup of Epsom salt or baking soda or apple cider vinegar or kombucha. There's so much you can do. Seaweed powder, and that is gonna open up your pores and really draw that out, draw the die-off out that way. You can also do foot baths. You can do coconut oil pulling, where you're putting coconut oil in your mouth or sesame oil or olive oil, swishing it around. That'll help get a lot of the fat-soluble toxins out of your mouth. There's really so many. Castor oil packs. I'd love to do a video on all the detox practices, but just want to emphasize doing those. I remember when I did the GAPS diet, which is 10 years ago, I felt like absolute crap. I remember walking home from uni and just feeling like I couldn't walk another step. I feel like I had the flu. It was exhausting. And so I went, all right, I'm gonna try a detox bath. And I'm pretty sure I just did like baking soda. I don't even know what I put in there. Maybe it was apple cider vinegar. And I was shocked how much better I felt almost instantly. And that was just supporting my skin, which is a huge detox organ. It was just opening it up to get rid of that stuff. And that's what all those detox practices are doing. They're just opening up your body to get rid of everything that's dying off. And it makes you feel better immediately. Kind of like when you throw up and you have food poisoning, you know, you really don't want to, but then as soon as you do, you just feel so much better. That's your detox practices. And finally, I want to say foods that cause die-off. In case you're like, how do I know if it's die-off? How do I know if it's a food intolerance? That is one of the most common questions. And this is super general, very general, but generally speaking, the foods that are going to cause die-off and worsening of symptoms are going to be your fermented foods. So sauerkraut, kimchi, fermented vegetables, kombucha, homemade yogurt, homemade kefir, all of those, and your probiotic supplements. So these are all super high in beneficial bacteria and beneficial yeast, which means with every drop, I'm not kidding, a drop, like a tiny spoonful, you are flooding your body with good bacteria that's going to go in and just kill all the bad bacteria and release crazy toxic gases. So these are powerful foods. You want to increase the dose super slowly. Do not try to be a hero and get to 1 tablespoon a day. I would start with like a drop, and do not underestimate how powerful a drop of those fermented foods can be. Oftentimes, one thing I'm always repeating to people is bring it back down, bring it back down. You do good on 1 drop, 2 drops, and then you confidently go to a tablespoon, and all of a sudden all these terrible symptoms come back. Your eczema comes back, your psoriasis comes back. It's just too much. It's too much die-off, so we need to scale it back. And that's really common with GAPS is you work your way up, and then sometimes you need to bring it back down. Then you work your way up again, and you just can kind of do that, and people can get frustrated, but just knowing that that is a huge part of GAPS and everyone's doing it, all the hundreds of thousands of people around the world are having the same problem trying to figure out how much they can tolerate without their symptoms getting too crazy. That is a big part of it. So fermented foods and probiotics is probably number 1. Number 2 is meat stock. Meat stock is actually super detoxifying. It's healing the gut lining, and while it's not necessarily a probiotic food, it causes a lot of die-off. So I have worked with people who cannot tolerate meat stock really at all, and they have to start extremely slow. It's rare. Usually people can handle meat stock, but sometimes they just have to start with like a drop of meat stock and more just do the full GAPS diet and very slowly work their way up with meat stock, okay? And then we have our natural antifungals, antivirals, and antibiotics. So this is gonna be coconut oil, organic, cold pressed coconut oil can be very antifungal, antiviral, antibacterial. That's what I should have said, antibacterial. Coconut oil, garlic is super potent for that. Onion, oregano oil, those are just some of the really potent natural kind of like antibiotics, I suppose. And then surprisingly, eggs and dairy. Often people have sensitivities to dairy or eggs. Sometimes it's more than a sensitivity, sometimes it's actually like an anaphylactic true allergy. But these actually are very detoxifying things. Eggs can be powerful chelators, meaning they can pull metals from the body, which can give you crazy die-off symptoms. So sometimes when people introduce eggs, they think that they're sensitive to them because they have this flare-up. Maybe they are. I don't know your situation. This isn't advice. Or just knowing that there is a potential that it's die-off, that it's actually detoxing your body. So eggs, and then our fermented dairy. Homemade fermented yogurt and homemade fermented kefir are some of the most powerful foods ever. So sometimes people will introduce a little bit of that and they feel crazy and their symptoms come back. Same thing, they think it's a food sensitivity, but it's actually just all this new beneficial bacteria being introduced, and it's causing that die-off, that crazy regression in symptoms where you're basically having a flare-up. And one thing I wanted to say in terms of fermented foods and dairy is milk kefir. Milk kefir is the last probiotic food you should introduce. Introduce it after everything else. It is insanely potent, insane. I mean, I'm talking a couple drops of that is more than the average probiotic pill. A couple drops. In fact, I actually researched a few of the top brands, and milk kefir put everything to shame. Like, you could have a drop of milk kefir and it would be more than a lot of 5 supplemental pills. It has so many beneficial yeasts, beneficial bacteria. It has such a wide range that people need to be extremely cautious with it. Start with a drop, notice your symptoms, and very slowly work your way up. I've talked to a lot of people who are going, yeah, GAPS is great, but all of a sudden I feel you know, my mental health's really bad, especially adults say this a lot. Their mental health's really bad, and it's often because they're drinking a ton of kefir. They like start making kefir smoothies with like half a cup of kefir, and it's just way too much. It's like a bomb in your gut. It's like one of those bombs that you know, hopefully you don't use them, but you put in your house and it like kills all the cockroaches or bugs or whatever. That is milk kefir. So it's one of my favorite foods. It's great to introduce, but be extremely cautious with that and be very aware that it might be causing a crazy amount of die-off. So hopefully that was helpful. I know I kind of covered a lot. I wanted to keep it simple, and I don't think I really did that. But if you found this helpful, I would love if you liked or commented or kind of let me know your experience, because I really feel like this is something people need to understand, or else you're just going to be super confused and you may quit and think that the diet's not working for you, when really it's actually working so good. You're just unaware of how good it's working. So yeah, thanks so much for watching, and I'll have another video coming soon.